Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Fourth and Troll Fantasy, the most entertaining fantasy football podcast on the planet. My name is Wes Selby.
And I am Noah Selby.
And as you may have realized, I'm doing the intro on this episode because last time Noah and I made a little bit of a friendly bet when we talked about our week one duds. I predicted that Ezekiel Elliott would get not just below his projections, but that he wouldn't even score a touchdown. And Noah said, all right, if you're right, you do the intro.
I said,
and you're hearing the results. So I hope you hear that this means that we got some pretty good accuracy and predictions here on Fourth and Troll. So we are excited to get into week one of the regular season's first things first. Noah, hi. How are you? Week one.
Dude. Hey, yeah, week one, man. I'm doing great. It was so much fun spending the weekend just watching football. Scott Hansen serenading me.
Dude.
For 7 hours of commercial-free football. And my goodness, if there's not a thing that'll bring a tear to a grown man's eye more than those. Hang on. 7 hours of commercial-free football. 6 words, man. I don't know
Count
what
it out.
is. I don't know what is. Wes, how you doing?
I feel the same. It was so exciting. And especially with this podcast, I was probably the most engaged in every single detail with fantasy. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And I look forward to talking about a bunch of players. We have a big show. First thing, before we get started, let's look at the 5-star review of the week. Noah, who wrote something lovely for us?
Let's do it. This review comes from user Shreddin the Gnar. So saw, dude. So Shreddin the Gnar left us an awesome 5-star review. Said, no doubt about it, I'm going to win my league this season. These dudes are top tier. Hot takes and research that no one else seems to be doing. Best league winning advice. We'll definitely keep listening and laughing along with the guys. I think I laughed so much I peed a little bit.
You peed?
You little pee-pee pants? Wow. Okay. Okay, Shreddin the Gnar. No, Shreddin the Gnar, thank you so much. I'm so glad to hear that I made you that we made you pee. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's touching.
Yeah, I hope it was regular and not, anything, too weird or anything like that. I hope it was just a regular movement. But
we do hope that you did win.
So great to hear.
We hope that we actually did help you win your game. League is still far from here, but we hope we did
that
win.
Too.
That's awesome.
That too. But as long as we, base level, as long as we made you pee, that's great as well. I'm so happy to hear that. That's right. Sometimes can take top priority. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, we've got a great show for you today. We'll talk all about week one. Let's discuss the superstars. We're going to talk about the big players from the season, or not from the season, from week one. In a segment we're going to call Hyped Up and Let Down. Some of these first and second round guys didn't produce that great on Sunday. And then we're going to jump into a segment called Fluke or For Real. So we determine which week one breakouts were nothing but flash or if they're the real deal. And we've got a new segment called Garage Sale. Some of these guys didn't have really big, attractive stats and points, but maybe they're worth looking at. And they're probably not very highly rostered in a lot of leagues so far. We'll also share with you our waiver wire ad of the week and then close out the show with a Thursday night football must-starts, risky starts and don't starts. Let's jump right into the news real quick before we get into all of week one. First things first, we don't want to keep talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers depth chart with the quarterbacks. But new update, Mike Tomlin is intending to start Mitch Trubisky through the entire year, which means that Kenny Pickett is not going to be playing in 2023, except for an injury or a blowout game or terrible performance by Mitch Trubisky. The quarterback for Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, it's going to be Mitch Trubisky. We've got some injuries already, some multiple week injuries, starting with Dak Prescott, who injured his thumb in the Bucs game very close to the end and will need surgery. He will be out 6 to 8 weeks. Oh, CeeDee Lamb owners, that sounds tough. I will say that now.
Yeah, Sunday night was already tough for CeeDee Lamb owners, given that he had 11 targets and 2 catches, but
yeah,
not to get into that right now, but I just don't even know what things are going to look like Some people are saying they might make a trade. Some people are saying they're going to keep things within. They might, they have Cooper Rush. Don't really know what's going to happen here, but it is already not looking good for the Cowboys.
Absolutely not. I feel bad outside of fantasy. Just Cowboys fans are already going to expect a lot of losses in the next few weeks. In additional injuries, Najee Harris's foot is not considered serious, but it is certainly worth monitoring. Right now, there's nothing, no reports on the condition right now, but he is trending towards playing on week 2. But also in Steelers, TJ Watt's pectoral tear is only partial, and they dominated the Bengals. So this is important for fantasy because he will be out at least 6 weeks unless he needs surgery, and then it's just season ending. They had 7 sacks, and I'm sure TJ Watt's presence will help get those sacks. And if he's not there, that's going to take a dip in fantasy stat lines for the Steelers defense. Elijah Mitchell also had an injury. This guy, 2 years in a row, is he's in a quote substantial brace from a knee injury. On Monday, it was confirmed he will miss around 8 weeks.
Yeah.
That's so sad. Next in line for the Niners is running back Jeff Wilson Jr. Noah and I are going to talk about him, see if he is worth the pickup for a starting running back. Also injuries coming up for Thursday. Keenan Allen is not expected to suit up against the Chiefs with a hamstring injury. He went out pretty early in that game against the Raiders, and right now it looks like Mike Williams will be the wide receiver 1. And lastly, a little bit of news from last night's game. Before Monday, Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett mentioned that he felt Javonte Williams was going to be in a good spot to be the lead back, but he'll go with a hot hand as the game goes on. Now, seeing how that went, both of them literally fumbled on the 1-yard line. They were both robbed of touchdowns. Now, that's just insane to begin with. Melvin Gordon ended up having more rushing yards, but Javonte Williams was clearly the better back. Oh my gosh, 12 targets, 11 receptions. The PPR volume is Christian McCaffrey level. That is ridiculous. So Melvin Gordon owners, might be another week or 2 or even longer as long as Javonte Williams stays like that. And that's it for the news. Before Noah and I jump into the week 1, let's talk about it, Noah.
Yeah, let's talk about it, man. This is going to be our little hyped up and let down segment, but you just mentioned it, so let's just keep on rolling with it. My goodness, Javonte Williams. I think the split was, a lot of people speculated what the split between him and Gordon were going to be. We didn't really know. We figured Javonte was going to be the main guy. Melvin Gordon had said they want Javonte to be that dude. Like, they want him to be that guy. 12 targets out of the backfield.
Cow.
Good Lord, if this production keeps up, you are very, very right on your running back rankings that we all were a little bit suspicious of, because I
feel pretty proud right now. It's just week 1. Hey, preface week 1.
Week 1 is the massive overreaction week.
But I'm feeling good.
But nearly 19.8 points on. He only rushed 7 times. But like you just said, 12 targets for 11 catches, 65 yards. He fumbled as well, so you take 2 points off of that.
Right.
You're looking at nearly 22 points.
22 points out of a scoreless game.
And didn't score a touchdown. Yeah, and didn't score a touchdown. So, you think Javonte Williams owners got to be so happy right now.
Absolutely.
Staying inside that game, I think Russ looked great. Obviously, there were some issues that he may have honestly been having a little bit of flashbacks to Seattle with how much that line was collapsing on him, how much he had to move around. But that is, a specialty of his, being able to move around in the backfield and make time. We saw that on Cortland Sutton's first catch of the game. It was a play that really broke down, and Cortland Sutton had to improvise the route, and Russ was running around back there and got it to him. But I think Russ looked awesome. I think Russ is going to cook. I think that's the thing, is they didn't really run a whole lot.
No,
it felt like. And so
20 carries total for the Broncos.
Yeah, and in a game where you thought it was probably going to be, I don't know, like the Broncos were going to be up a ton, and then they, they didn't do that. They ended up losing the game. It's awesome to see Russ just being out there chucking the ball. I believe he went over 300 yards, only the one touchdown.
Yeah, 340 yards, 42 attempts also.
Yeah, I love it though. And it may be the Nathaniel Hackett playbook, but I love it. I'm really excited to watch the Broncos. I think we, a lot of us had questions about whether it was going to be Judy or Sutton, and I think the answer is both. I think they're going to both be fantasy relevant, and I think that's exciting for anyone who took either of them. Sutton did look like he was getting a lot more of the downfield targets. Jerry Jeudy had 20.2 points, 7 targets, 4 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. 67 of those yards came on one play, and that was his touchdown. Really long play. Should have honestly been just a huge breakaway, but the throw was a little bit. Jeudy had to wait on it a little bit, but I loved watching this game. It's a big bummer. I was rooting for Russ in a revenge game. It was a bummer they lost. I was a little bummed out there.
Surprised too, they lost.
Yeah, big surprise. But I was thrilled to see all these fantasy assets that we've been so excited to watch go out there and play and produce a big excitement for how we were, really looking forward to these guys coming in and play. Really,
yeah.
I'm thrilled with what we saw from Monday Night Football. And
yeah, both Jeudy and Sutton saw 7 targets, so they are clearly involved. I mean, it's funny because Javonte Williams had led the team in targets with 12, but Jeudy and Sutton were amazing. I mean, yeah, I look forward to. I think everyone that drafted Broncos players are already reaping the reward.
Yeah, I think so, and if that's what we saw from a game from the Denver Broncos, from Russell Wilson, from Javonte Williams, from Cortland Sutton, from Jerry Jeudy, from these guys, a game not inside the AFC West, like they're going to play 6 of those games this year. We saw
shootout games.
Saw shootout games, and this is the production we get from a game that really should have been much more out of hand in the opposite direction. And for a while, Geno was outplaying Russ. Like, it was like, what's going on here? Which, good for Geno, man. That was all. It was pretty cool seeing him. He was out there.
He was really good.
Trucking dudes. He was just back foot, throwing little floaters over for touchdowns, stuff like that. Really cool to see him do that. But for the Broncos here, in a game where you see this all happening, where it's not even a shootout, I can only imagine what games going up against Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and Derek Carr and Devontae Adams and these guys is going to be like. And I'm so excited for it. I can't wait. I cannot wait. That's just I wanted to get that going right off the bat here, man, because that was something I am super hyped up on, as those guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody else is a guy you took in fantasy drafts, Wes, as your second running back. My goodness. Saquon Barkley, I believe Saquon is back. I think he's back.
Yeah, thinking I'm back.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
He's the number 1 running back in fantasy after week 1. And oh my gosh, it was a relief to see him get 20 points. And then he kept going.
And then just kept on going.
33.4 points. Golly. Dude, I loved it.
I'm going to do some quick math here because I don't have the exact number right in front of me. So give me one moment as I do this.
Yeah.
But
real-time calculating?
Real-time calculating. Real-time doing the maths.
I'm big on math. I'm big on numbers here.
But he averaged 9 yards a carry.
Yeah.
164 rushing yards on 18 carries. I don't know what Brian Dable was putting in his Wheaties at the facility, but my goodness, that's okay. So in comparison, another guy, Jonathan Taylor, fantastic Fantastic week. 27.5 points. Great week. Did Jonathan Taylor things. Jonathan Taylor had 161 rushing yards on 31 carries. So he had 3 less yards on 13 more carries than Saquon Barkley did. It's just, I think
it's wild.
It's crazy, man. I think the moral of what we're saying here is like, wow, running backs are good, man. I don't know what more to say with it. Well, some of them are.
Yeah, some of them are. We'll talk about the ones that didn't do so hot. I will say watching that, okay, first of all, that Giants-Titans game was an incredible fourth quarter finish. They said it was America's game of the week, and I was like, who decided that? And then I watched it, and I realized, oh, they were right.
Dude, the nuts on Brian Dable, man.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my
2-point conversion for the win.
I was so happy he was doing that. I was like, yeah, please do it. Go for it. Please do it.
So, looking at the Giants roster, Saquon, destroyed on all facets. The wild thing is that the Giants receiving core was terrible.
Yeah.
And I think this may actually be, and I'm not saying 33 points every week, but this may really be how a lot of the Giants games are going to go. Saquon Barkley is going to single-handedly carry this team offensively. He can. Yeah. He's got the quads for it. Yeah. But, it's just Daniel Jones had 188 yards. And that's not – the fact that Saquon had almost as many rushing yards as that is crazy. The Giants' passing game is not going to be worth anything. And my sleeper was Kadarius Toney.
How did you do?
I was wrong.
How many targets did he have?
He had 0 targets.
Like what? Like what are we doing here, Brian Dable? And he's like, "Here's what I'm doing. I'm going for 2, and you can shove it." That's what we're doing.
Crazy. Kadarius Toney. I'm already using him to drop for a waiver. It was terrible. Yeah. He was in like 20% of the snaps. I don't know what happened. It was wide receiver
really
3.
Interesting. He like. They were shuffling through a lot of these guys. I think my only hold on him is that their rookie wide receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson, got hurt. And so maybe I hold on for another week and see if he develops the chemistry again. But because his big game last year against Dallas was Mike Glennon was quarterbacking half that game. And I think that's really when things started to pick up for him. I heard reports that he was kind of not like in the doghouse, but like with Giants coaching staff. And this came in on like Saturday or Sunday morning or something like that. So it wasn't something we reported that I had seen for our last Friday's show.
Is this Wan'Dale or is this
This is Kadarius. This is for Kadarius Toney. Is that he was like not like in the doghouse, but like they were like, hey, we're a new coaching staff and you're going to have to prove yourself. You're a second-year guy and didn't get a lot of work last year and stuff like that. And so I think I don't know, man. It's weird, but yeah, not to distract from Saquon Barkley, man, because I think he might have like, I think we're going to start seeing that projection go up and up to like where like McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor's level is at if he keeps this going.
Saquon Barkley
I think he'll start to be projected like around 20 points a game, and I think he'll probably have a 20-point floor with like 35, 40-point upside. Like
because of the lack of passing production.
This is one touchdown, like one touchdown in this game. And the Titans defense was like pretty good last year against the run. And so for him to 9.1 yards per carry, I know he broke off a big one, but still like it's not. And he almost caught a touchdown as well on Daniel Jones' interception. I couldn't believe he was going through his reads and he looked at Saquon at first when Saquon was coming out of the backfield. I couldn't believe he didn't throw it right then and there. And then you cut to footage and you saw Dable like chewing him out because he saw the read. Was for. Yeah, he saw the read and then he went through to other guys and then he looked back at Saquon and then threw to Saquon and he threw the pick. And it was like, no, if you threw to Saquon right then and there, that's a receiving touchdown in right there as well. Man, he is excited. I think I'm most excited to see him atop the leaderboard. Like
it's pretty cool.
this week because
it's wonderful.
Yeah, because just the journey he's been on, man, and a lot of people, thought he might be washed, thought it might be, maybe he's done for. He was a 1-year wonder. Maybe it was just his rookie year and that was it. Maybe it was Eli or whatever, whatever it was. But man,
yeah,
that was exciting. Some other guys that just absolutely hyped us up this week. DeAndre Swift looked like outside of Saquon Barkley, looked like one of the best running backs in football yesterday. 15 carries, 144 yards and a touchdown. He broke off like a 50-yard run early in the game, but still, he ended up putting up around 100 more on 14 more carries. Had a touchdown, got vultured on like 2 touchdowns. Jamal Williams scored twice in this game. And it wasn't like the Lions coaching staff was like giving Jamal a drive. No, when DeAndre Swift had that 50-yard run, Jamal Williams ended that drive with a touchdown. So we could have been looking at, he had nearly 27 points. We could have been looking at nearly like a 40-point week if he scores those other touchdowns Jamal Williams scores. Really awesome to see that from him.
Absolutely.
Kareem Hunt got in the end zone twice. Again, just somehow.
Yeah, he cheats.
He falls in drafts a lot, man, and he somehow just ends up. He's like, yeah, you guys forgot I'm like really good. Like I'm a really good football player.
Right.
Big win for the Browns over Baker. That was really cool to see. Nick Chubb still did Nick Chubb things as well. 141 rushing yards.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, I think the man with the biggest plan in the world on Sunday, though. And who was it, Wes?
Dude, my number 2 pick overall.
Yep.
Justin Jefferson. And let me tell you,
your talk.
I only bragged a little bit, but in our group chat in the league that I drafted him in, I sent that picture of Thanos saying, they called me a madman when I took him 2nd overall. And here he is. Dude, he looked like he was in practice. It looked so easy for him.
It looked so easy. And
it was effortless.
Like a 40-point week, 39.4 fantasy points, 11 targets, 9 catches, 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dude, that was almost all in the first half.
Yeah.
Like that was almost all in the first half. I think he had like 100. I don't even know what the exact numbers were, but I was almost all in the first half. If they were in a more competitive game, gosh, we might have seen the best wide receiver fantasy game in history. Like I'm not even kidding. Yeah. I'm not even kidding.
I know.
Kevin O'Connell was finding ways for this man to get open and score touchdowns, and it was freaking awesome.
I remember during the offseason, Jefferson talked about how when Kevin O'Connell came over to be the head coach of the Vikings, he wondered, how did Cooper Kupp get open so much last year? Yeah. And then he started working with Kevin O'Connell, and he said, oh, I get it. And we literally saw that. One of Jefferson's touchdown, that super long touchdown he had, there was like no one around for like 10 or 15 yards.
Yeah, like 15 yards of separation from anybody. And it was like, oh.
How does he get open? I get
it now. Yeah. My goodness, just absolutely incredible work from Justin Jefferson. I mean, if anyone was skeptical or didn't, believe that Kirk could get him the ball or whatever, shut your pie holes, okay? He is out here for blood, coming out here and is gold grills now, man. That was so cool to see too. That was awesome. Another guy who we thought maybe might not light it up. We'll have to wait and see. A new guy on the Raiders, Devontae Adams, just did Devontae Adams things. He, we thought, hey, are we gonna regret like sleeping on him a little bit? Cause like maybe he isn't gonna be as good as we think he might be, like without Aaron Rodgers. No, he's fantastic. 17 targets. And that was the other thing. It was like, oh, he's not going to get the target share there. There's Waller, there's Renfro. No way he gets the target share. Yeah, 17 targets. Like, no, like it's Devontae Adams. If you drafted him, you're thrilled because he is that dude.
He is that dude.
Yeah, just a few more guys that just hyped us up. Jamar Chase, which hyped me down a little bit because I was playing against him in fantasy, which is a bit of a bummer.
It's a bummer,
yeah, big bummer. But Jamar Chase, nearly 29 fantasy points, 16 targets. T. Higgins did go out of this game. He's currently in the concussion protocol. Zach Taylor said signs are pointing that he'll be back for week 2. So maybe won't see 16 targets, but he is still going to be a great fantasy football wide receiver. That is why you took him in the first round of your fantasy football drafts. Your guy, AJ Brown, holy crap.
Holy crap, indeed. When we did the graphics for your top 10 QBs, Noah, you got a little bit of flack. And I was so scared because my graphic for wide receivers was going to be next. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to cry when people see that I put AJ Brown in the top 10.
Destroy you when you and holy crap, dude! 25.5 fantasy points, 13 targets, 10 catches, 155 yards.
Look,
didn't even score. Didn't even
score.
Didn't even
All
score.
I was
didn't
reading.
Need to.
It's so nice to see at least one of these guys who had off-season and training camp reports fulfill what was being said about them.
Yeah.
I read once that he was going to likely have a historic target share. And this is exactly what was being said. And I love it. And I cannot believe I don't have him in any of the leagues that I'm in, despite putting him as wide receiver 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he had 10 catches there from last season. There wasn't a single Eagles wide receiver who had 10 targets in a game. Wow. And he had 10 catches in his first game in Philly. Incredible. Yeah, man, those are guys that got us hyped up.
Absolutely.
I was hyped up. Were you hyped up?
I'm very hyped up. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me take you from the highest of highs now to the lowest of lows. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's an emotional roller coaster.
Don't you love that feeling?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just cry about some guys here real quick.
Okay.
These are some guys who did the opposite of hype us up, and they let us down. And the reason you introed the show, Ezekiel Elliott, you called it, man, 5.9 fantasy points.
Yeah.
10 carries for 52 yards. So he was efficient when he carried, man, but
he was really good with the ball.
He looked honestly really good. He looked really, really good. There was just nothing that Dallas offense was doing, and they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't do anything. Bit disappointing there. I don't see his stock changing much without Dak. Without Dak, because I think if anything, they rely on him a little bit more. But these defenses are going to know they don't really have to, and that's what happened last night. Not last night. Sunday night. That's what happened Sunday night was that the Bucs defense knew they didn't have to play deep because they knew that there was no one stretching the field for Dallas. And so they were able to stack that front 7 up, and their secondary is talented enough to be able to limit CeeDee Lamb to 2 catches on 11 targets.
That's an unbelievable stat.
That is terrible. Yeah. And so Zeke ran the ball very well. It's just I don't know what he ends up.
I guess they're just not scared of the passing game.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody is, and I especially don't think they will now with Cooper Rush or if they trade for somebody or whatever happens. But still, better. I do believe better days are ahead for Zeke. I just think
I agree.
It was a rough situation. He looks very good running the football, but better days I think are ahead there. I don't know if better days are going to be ahead for Aaron Rodgers.
Oh my gosh.
I'd like to think they will be, but I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, so I will share something personal here.
Go ahead.
I am a very big Aaron Rodgers fan. He has been one of my favorite players from the last 10 years or longer. I mean, I think since he won his Super Bowl, I have been an Aaron Rodgers fan. It hurts watching how bad that offense was. I'm sure people have seen it by now, but Devontae Adams alone had more receiving yards than the entire Packers receivers combined. It's evident that he is not going to stretch the field with anybody. Allen Lazard was out. Allen Lazard is not Devontae Adams.
He's not. If you own Lazard, I am holding him. I'm not dropping him
Sure.
for anyone on like a waiver ad this week. I think it's worth holding on to him. I think I don't know
I think you have to for week
my
2 just
goodness,
to see.
Rodgers laid a beautiful rainbow into rookie wide receiver Christian Watson's hands in the first quarter when but Minnesota had only just scored. And so they could have tied the game in the first quarter, could have changed the trajectory of the game, could have changed momentum. And he laid a rainbow into his hands and Christian Watson dropped it. And the look in Aaron Rodgers' eyes, I think someone needs to do a wellness check on Christian Watson's family because I don't know if they are still alive. Because my goodness.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think we all know Rodgers doesn't really bother to hide his emotions. And so he just let him go. And you could see I was cracking up how annoyed and pissed off he looked on the sideline.
Yeah, he was
rightfully so
angry. I will say because of this, I will keep tabs on, you said Alan Lazard, but I will also keep a tab on Robert Tonyan because as you said, Rodgers has been vocal about who he likes and what frustrates him, and he likes Robert Tonyan.
Yeah.
And after that game, it's possible Tonyan starts seeing a lot more targets. But I also am not worried about Aaron Jones. He still finished with over 10 points, but I think that trust for Jones and especially A.J. Dillon getting a touchdown, I think Rodgers is going to say, screw it. I'm just going to these guys until someone can prove to me they are worth me throwing the football in the third and fourth quarter.
Which makes, if you own a Packers running back, it probably makes you happy. I mean, you might have been a little disappointed and let down by Aaron Jones. Still 10.6 fantasy points. Still saw 5 targets. I believe A.J. Dillon also saw 5 targets. So, it's a bit of a, you didn't get exactly what you were hoping for out of Aaron Jones, but I think both of these running backs can be locked into lineups safely. A.J. Dillon at least is a flex play, and I think Aaron Jones, you can still ride him out as your running back too.
Yeah, I agree.
A couple of guys who we just expected maybe a little more from didn't necessarily disappoint, but we expected just a little bit more just based on history. Christian McCaffrey finished with 15.7 fantasy points.
Yeah.
Not a terrible day. He got bailed out because he did end up scoring a touchdown. But you expected a little more. He only saw 4 targets. And I think that's something that Matt Rule, I think I'm not too concerned yet. I think it's something that Matt Rule is going to talk with Baker Mayfield about and say, hey, I know you want to win football games. If we want to do this, the football needs to be in his hands many more times than it was.
I also wonder if maybe this was just Mayfield trying to prove something to the Browns, and this was just week 1, and he was saying, I am going to win the game. I am going to be the one to put the nail in the coffin and say, you missed me now. Let the dog, I'm off the leash t-shirts or whatever it is.
Baker had a rushing touchdown as well. So maybe in another universe, McCaffrey scores that and bolsters up your fantasy production a little bit. Dalvin Cook as well. 13.8 fantasy points. Again, not super disappointing. Not like a huge letdown or necessarily a bust, but you just expected a little more. I love that he had 20 carries.
Yeah.
I love that he had 20 carries in this game. He had 5 targets in this game. I'm not going to complain much about 25 opportunities on a really high-powered offense.
I'm not worried
like the Minnesota
whatsoever.
Vikings. Yeah, I think he bounces back. I think he has a really good chance at just 13.8, not the hottest, not the worst, but you definitely move on from there. Najee Harris, though, coming off this injury, he bailed out a lot of fantasy managers. He finished with 10.6 points. Again, we expected more. Not terrible, just not what you wanted. And he only barely got you there because he was bailed out on a 1-yard touchdown catch. If he doesn't have that, he's looking at like sub 5 points.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that whole Bengals Steelers game was so weird, and I don't know what happened. That is so strange. But what are you thinking about your guy that you ranked RB2 on the season?
I know it's extremely concerning, just even the potential of him still making top 10, because now this other injury that he's suffering through. I mentioned when I declared him as a potential RB2 for the season, that offensive line looks rough, but he's really good. However, you can only be so good when you're not 100% healthy. So I don't want to say I'm worried about him, but I'm not relaxed about starting him next week. I'll admit that.
Bit of concern there for sure. A couple other guys real quick. We already talked about CeeDee Lamb, just 4.9 points. Don't know what's going to happen here. He was going in second rounds of drafts as people's wide receiver 1. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I am glad I did not draft him in any leagues that I have. Derrick Henry as well. 21 carries, 82 yards, got the workload you think Derrick Henry is going to get, just didn't necessarily break any away and didn't score a touchdown. So a little bit let down there if you're a Derrick Henry owner. I will say he only had 1 target in this game. He's never been a big receiving back, but in the past, over the past couple years, he had been getting a little more work, maybe 2 or 3 targets a game. That definitely seemed to be bounced over to Dontrell Hilliard's role of being the receiving back on this team when they need that situation to happen. He caught 2 touchdowns, which was a little wild.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about Derrick Henry, just a little bit for week 1.
I will say
keep him in the lineup.
Yeah, I'll say one stat is that last season he also had only 10 points in week 1.
Yeah.
And then the next week he scored 47. So
in that Seattle game. I remember that. Yeah. That was absurd.
I think you'll be okay.
But yeah, just some letdowns, man. Just some big hype ups and letdowns from week 1. Again, it's the biggest overreaction week of the year. We look at it and we go, oh my gosh, Kyle Pitts had 3.9 points. He's a bust. Get rid of him. He might be, but you don't get rid of him. He's a star. He's a freak athlete. You keep him there. But yeah, so moving on here, we're going to break down some of these week 1 breakouts in a segment we call Fluke or For Real. We're just going to quick fire here, whether we think, some of these performances are, signs of things to come, or if it was a little fluky. Let's start out with the great performances, though. I'm going to name a player, Wes, and how many points they scored. You're going to tell me if you think it's a fluke or if it's for real.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Cool. Michael Carter, running back for the New York Jets, with 17 fantasy points in week 1.
I'm going to say fluke.
Yeah?
I'm going to say fluke because I still think it's a committee, and I still think Breece Hall is going to prove something because he also had 10 targets. So I think this is a fluke. He just was in more. He's already played week 1 before. I think it's a fluke.
Sure. It's a little too early to tell for me. He did have 10 carries for 60 yards, so 6 yards a carry. Great, production there. But I think it is a little early to tell for myself. I'd be interested to check out what happens next. Clyde Edwards-Helaire with 22.4 fantasy points. Wes, fluke or for real?
Gosh, I wish I could say I don't know. If I have to pick,
yep.
You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say for real.
I'm going to say for real too.
Yeah. It's because of his receiving upside, it seems like. Yeah. 42 rushing yards. Nothing that would impress me there, but the fact he had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Okay.
They got creative too. There was that one where it was like a little Mahomes ran a little bootleg and then did a little shovel pass underhand to him. Like they designed that play for him. So it's Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy designing plays for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The thing we were missing from him over the last couple of years was he needs the goal line work and he needs the receiving upside, and he got both of them. So that's really cool to see. Michael Thomas, 22.7 fantasy points, fluke or for real? I say for real. I mean, think so too.
He didn't lead the team in targets. Jarvis Landry did that, but he's back. He's not going to be 2019 500 million points. Michael Thomas, but I think he's worth starting if you are suffering in wide receivers.
Yeah, 5 catches for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns on AJ Terrell too, who is a very slept-on corner in the league. He just made him his baby. Like it was just Michael Thomas on both of his touchdowns, just mossed the dude, just outworked him. James Robinson, 19.9 fantasy points. What is going on?
I'm going to say fluke.
Wow. Okay.
I'm going to say fluke, not because he won't have games like that again, but because I think Travis Etienne will become more involved as this season progresses.
Yeah.
So between the two, that's why I say Fluke.
Yeah, I think they both got really good opportunities. I think Travis Etienne was an overthrow and a dropped pass away from a 2-touchdown day
That's
himself.
right.
Lawrence overthrew him a little bit on a route where he was pretty open in the end zone, and then Etienne on a 4th and 1 where they were going for it within the 5-yard line, I think dropped a pass, and I think he would have scored on that one as well. I think I'm going to say for real on this one though, because I think they, with those 2 plays that Etienne had that he didn't have that he could have, both of these guys would have been looking at great fantasy days. I think we might be looking at a little bit of Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon type situation here. I think they can both be really good. Cool. I think they can both be really good. Let's look at one of the 4 rushers of touchdowns for the Philadelphia Eagles over this last week 1. Miles Sanders, 18.5 points, Fluke or for real?
Well, for that stat alone, that's why I say Fluke.
Yeah.
I mean, just as we mentioned, AJ Brown dominated that game, and Jalen Hurts, I think, knows that, and I think it's just going to continue to be like that. Without that touchdown, sure, Miles Sanders has 96 yards. That's pretty impressive, but I mean, I say Fluke.
Yeah, I think he looked like the best back out there besides Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts had, 18 carries for, I believe, 90 yards.
He led in carries. Yeah,
he had 18 carries for 90 yards. I believe that ties the most carries he's ever had in a game. I think this offense is what we think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Jalen Hurts running the ball a lot. I think it's going to be AJ Brown getting a lot of targets. I think Miles Sanders will get his. He didn't score a touchdown at all last year, and so only up from here for after week 1. So there you go.
True.
Real quick, the last couple of guys here. Christian Kirk, 17.7 fantasy points. Fluke or for real? For
real, no doubt. Love him. Yeah. He's awesome. Yeah, he's great. He's going to be
really cool.
Great starter for your team. He could be a potential league winner.
Yeah, really cool to see him out there doing well with Trevor Lawrence there. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a name that we were all a little concerned. Maybe he doesn't keep this production up that he had when DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson were out at the end of last year. 20.4 fantasy points. Fluke or for real?
With 12 targets, I say for real.
I think so too. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, a guy that I wasn't really high on, and I think I should have been higher on. I think it's for real. I think, the game script really allowed for them to be able to throw the ball a lot. I think that helped out a little bit. But, I don't think he'll get double-digit targets every single week, but I do think it's a really good opportunity for him. Last year's breakout running back at the age of 32, Cordero Patterson with 22.6 fantasy points. What do we think, Wes?
Just what you said about Amon-Ra St. Brown. We should have been higher on him. I feel so dumb for passing up on him.
Yeah.
I was like, of course. Why wouldn't he be just like this again? Now, he doesn't look like he's going to have the same kind of receiving integration now that Kyle Pitts and Drake Leonard are there. But I say for real, he's an established running back for the Falcons.
Yeah, I agree. AJ Dillon with 20.1 points. Fluke or for real, Wes?
For real. We already talked about it in previous episodes. For real.
Lock him into the flex. Antonio Gibson, surprise, with 20 points in fantasy, the most receiving yards of all running backs in week 1. 7 catches for 72 yards. Fluke or for real?
I will be honest. I'm a little bit of an Antonio Gibson hater. It's not because I don't like him or I don't like the Commanders. I just was frustrated with his injury and his boom bust kind of performances. He still finished top 10, but I will admit I'm biased right now to continue to say Fluke.
Yeah,
I'll admit that.
I don't prey on his downfall, but I was really excited to hear that Brian Robinson was going to get the starting job, because I also am not a huge fan of Gibson, put a lot of trust into him last year. I was so excited for Gibson. I took him in the 2nd round last year.
Yeah.
So ready for him to be elite. 20 points, great week 1, was against the Jaguars. We'll see what happens there. Also, on the outside of that team there, Jahan Dotson, 18 fantasy points. Fluke or for real?
Fluke for at least up until week 10.
Yeah, I think so as well. Those were the good performances, Wes. Let's look at some of the bad ones, though, because we need to figure out if these guys that we put a lot of trust into, if they're going to actually end up bouncing out of this. Fluke or for real, Allen Robinson with 2.2 fantasy points.
I'm sorry. I want to say that's for real. 2 targets. It's just, I think he'll have some good games, but for me right now, I think that's for real.
Yeah, I think
It's
it's
all
going to be
Cooper
tough
Kupp.
to be. I think it's going to be tough to feel confident starting Allen Robinson, at least until he breaks out. And watch
Yeah,
now
exactly.
is 2.2 fantasy points, and now against AJ Terrell and the Falcons this week, he's going to have 40, and we're going to be like, oh, okay, well, let's start
Right.
him now again, and then he's going to have 5, and we're just going to go through this. Also on that Los Angeles Rams team, Cam Akers 0 points, a goose egg, Fluke, or for real.
I say for real,
I
dude.
do too.
Dude, Sean McVay called him out after the game. He said, basically, you have to capitalize on the opportunities. Now, I know he was hardly in the game, and he only had like 6 opportunities with he played, I think, 28% of the snaps. Like, he was super low. Even still, that's for
Yeah,
real. Cam Akers is already a season bust after 1 week.
looks like it.
I wouldn't start Daryl Henderson immediately, but I would at least keep him. I wouldn't trade him just yet if I had Daryl Henderson.
Yeah. A guy that I think I know your answer is going to be, but Travis Etienne only 8.5 fantasy points. Fluke or for real?
That's Fluke. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
just James Robinson benefiting off the touchdowns. If Etienne had 1 touchdown, he would be basically a 15-point
Yeah,
player, and that would be worth the pick that you got him in the 4th, 5th round.
I agree. A couple others here. Amari Cooper with 4.7 points. What do we think?
I think that's going to be for real.
Yeah,
I think they all know the passing game in Cleveland is just not going to be what it could be as long as they have Jacoby Brissett behind center.
I agree. A couple of Los Angeles Chargers here. Austin Eckler, again, not a terrible game, just 11.2 points, though. We thought it was going to be a little more. Fluke or for real, Wes?
Fluke. It's Eckler.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah, no, he'll get his. I am afraid to say I think he's going to be closer to this 11.2 point game most weeks than he probably
That's his average,
will
you think?
be. Not his average, but I think he'll be closer to. I think he'll be closer to 15 than he is going to be to 25. All of these weeks,
Okay.
I think
That's possible.
I'm not entirely sure. My stud of the week last week, Mike Williams, 3 points. Wes, Fluke or for real?
Okay, I'm not going to take up a lot of time, but I'm going to make a point here. Okay. First of all, Keenan Allen went out, like in the second quarter or something. The fact that he only got 4 targets after Keenan Allen was gone is a red flag to me. Now, no other Chargers receivers saw more than 4 targets.
Nobody saw more than
so.
No Chargers pass catcher saw more than 4 targets.
Very interesting
at all. Like
but here's the thing I'm going to say, and I this won't make you happy, Noah, because I know you love Mike Williams, but I did a little math.
Oh,
and here's
screw your math, man.
Here's the thing. There is a bona fide statistic for wide receivers that see 5 or fewer targets. Okay, week 1, 5 or fewer targets. Only 9% of the top 15 wide receivers from the last 10 years started out week 1 with 5 or fewer targets. That's just the top 15. If you want to literally look at every single wide receiver that starts week 1 with 5 or fewer targets from the last 10 years, that's a 1.4% chance they're in the top 15. And I don't want to say against Mike Williams that he's not going to do great, because it concerns me, because there's some other receivers here that also have 5 targets. Jalen Waddle had 5 targets. Gabe Davis had only 5 targets. Terry McLaurin, 5 targets. Rashad Bateman, 5 targets. So for me, I'm going to defer to the math, and I'm going to say Mike Williams, that's for real. He's not going to be the fantasy value he should be.
You're wrong.
I know you disagree.
Okay. No, you're wrong, but that's all right. It's all good. No,
it's just the math.
Here's the thing. No, and the math is fine, but the numbers aren't always the numbers. Here's the thing. Justin Herbert threw the football through a pass to 11 different people on this offense this past week in week 1. 11 different people received a pass from Justin Herbert. That's outrageous. That is passing the ball around like it's nobody's business. And it wasn't like it was super efficient for them. They weren't like blowing out it wasn't like blowing out the Raiders and stuff like that. Like that was only a 5-point game. I think Mike Williams, what we all signed up for and what we experienced last year was that I need to temper my expectations a little bit. I think I saw him having a little bit of a better floor than 3 points. Shocker. But I think he will go ahead and he's going to be kind of Tyler Lockett-esque, I feel like. I think it's going to be some weeks where he pops off and he goes nuclear. There's going to be weeks that he doesn't, and he gets you 3 points, But with where you drafted him, you're not going to try and play this guessing game. You're starting him. Like you have to start him if you drafted him because you took him with a 5th or 6th round pick. You need to start him if you have him. You're going to probably be let down sometimes, and there are other times that he's going to completely win you weeks, and it's going to be an emotional roller coaster. And get over it because it's going to be fun. Okay, it's going to be fun. All right, I'm done talking about these Fluke for reals, man. Let's move on real quick to a few guys in this segment we're calling garage sale. These guys, just because they're not shiny and they might be unwanted out there on the waiver wire, doesn't mean they aren't worth anything. These are going to be guys who had pretty solid weeks, and they're rostered in less than 50% of ESPN fantasy leagues. I'm going to list a few players that you might be thinking about picking up from the garage sale. And if you think they're worth buying after a use or after a couple of uses or however many times they've been used, whatever, let's run through these as well real quick, Wes. Rex Burkhead with 12 points. He outsnapped Dameon Pierce. He had more opportunities than Dameon Pierce. He's only rostered in 17% of leagues. What are you thinking on Rex Burkhead?
I think it's a very, very interesting addition to anybody's team because it's not just outsnapped Dameon Pierce. It's 71% to 8 to 28%. And there's a lot of hype about Dameon Pierce, and I think he'll be more involved, but I mean, 12 points is not impressive, but I mean, if they're on the goal line, there's statistically a better shot Rex Burkhead is going to be there than Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, the game script was there too for Dameon Pierce. I mean, the Texans were up by 17 points. So the game script was there to hand him the ball and feed him and let him run the ball out and waste time, and it didn't really happen. My thing with waiver wires is that if you're going to pick somebody up, it's got to be somebody that you can probably picture yourself starting, unless it's somebody that you're betting on the upside for. For Rex Burkhead, I don't know if I'm going to take that shot and pick him up. This next guy, I don't think I'm going to take a shot and pick up either, but it's DeAndre Carter. Who? Yeah, I know. He's rostered in 0.1% of fantasy leagues, but he's like a 4th or 5th string Chargers wide receiver who had 15.4 fantasy points, 4 targets yet again. 3 catches, 64 yards, and a touchdown. You don't need to do anything about it. He doesn't need to be rostered. I'm not even giving him flex consideration. Like, he doesn't need to be on your team.
Mentioning just because Keenan Allen is likely not going to play.
Yeah, and I mean, on Thursday. Anybody finds the end zone and it's a name in week 1, you probably got to consider it, but I don't think you need to seriously consider this. Another guy for the Chargers, Gerald Everett, with 14.4 fantasy points this week. Again, another 4 targets, 3 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown, rostered in 13% of fantasy leagues. Maybe if you had a bit of a letdown at tight end, maybe if you're a Cole Kmet owner and you got 1 target out of the dude, I'm pretty much throwing away that whole game because it was played in a lake, pretty much.
They played water polo.
Yeah, they played in a kiddie pool for what it's worth. Maybe Gerald Everett, you consider it. I don't know fully if it's worth it. I don't know, because I don't know if he repeats. He's going to be touchdown dependent if he does. He scored on an 18-yard touchdown. So it's going to be interesting, but I'm not sure if I'm going to take the shot there on picking him up.
I'm not sure.
Jamal Williams, 16 points, scored 2 touchdowns, only rostered in 35% of leagues. Wes, what do you think about Jamal Williams?
I think it's too much of a risk because DeAndre Swift is just so good. I get he vulture touchdowns, but I think all that does is it just affects DeAndre Swift owners' stats instead of benefit a Jamal Williams starter. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yeah.
think people are. It's not like Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, or AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones. It's not. It's not a committee. It's he just happened to be the goal line back and got 2 touchdowns. So for me, I'm not rushing to go use my waiver wire for Jamal Williams.
Yeah. I believe I believe I'm with you there on that. He's an intriguing option because I know Dan Campbell loves him, but not sure if I'm going to rush to the waiver wire to add him there. If you lost Dak Prescott, you might be needing a quarterback, and look no further than Carson Wentz, only rostered in 17% of leagues, scored 27 fantasy points.
Yeah,
I know it was the Jaguars, but he scored 27 fantasy points. He rushed he had 6 rushing attempts. He didn't make much of them. There was only 12 yards, but still, he's not afraid to scramble out a little bit. If you are in need of a quarterback, if you lost Dak, or maybe you only drafted Matthew Stafford as your top guy and you're not really believing in that, or you're a little concerned about the elbow, I think it's worth taking a shot on Carson Wentz. I think this offense is going to be in games where they're probably going to need to be throwing. He's going to need to facilitate some offense for them. Went over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's a 27 fantasy points.
That's solid.
Yeah. I would have loved that over Tom Brady this week. I might have gotten the win if I had that,
Yeah,
so,
unfortunately.
Yeah. So not too much if you're not in need of a quarterback, but if you do need a quarterback, Carson Wentz. Let me just jump through to one last guy here, and it's probably the most interesting one we're going to talk about, and it's going to be Jeff Wilson Jr. Elijah Mitchell is going to be out for 8 weeks?
8 weeks. Yep. 2 months.
8 weeks, it's looking like. It's hard to think about what you should do here because, like we said, that game was so strange. And it was such a monsoon. But Jeff Wilson Jr. does seem like the next man up.
I'm not reading too much in the 5 points that he got, just as you said, because they played in a monsoon.
Yeah, and same as I'm not reading into like Deebo Samuel's production from this game because that was a little bit of a letdown. I'm not really reading into Trey Lance either. Like I think Trey Lance has a lot better days ahead. I think Jeff Wilson is, if you roster Elijah Mitchell and you don't have a good, kind of committee of backs on your fantasy team, I think you need to go ahead and put in the waiver claim, especially because you should be able to put Elijah Mitchell in your IR spot and just make a claim. You don't even have to drop anybody. Once Elijah Mitchell comes back, you can drop Jeff Wilson. You can bring him back onto the roster. I think he'll be fine, maybe as a flex play, probably not next week. We need to wait and see. I think the biggest beneficiary of Elijah Mitchell being out for 2 months is going to be Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel was already getting a fantastic point. I was seeing Deebo Samuel getting the red zone rushes. He was getting the draws, the sweeps, that kind of stuff. I mean, for somebody who said he didn't want to play the wide back role anymore, he's playing the wide back role a lot, dude.
I think he had 8 rushes.
Yeah. So it's like I think he's probably going to be the one who benefits the most there. To close out this little garage sale segment, though, we're going to give you our selections for each of our top waiver wire ads of the week. Wes, let's start with you. Who's going to be your top guy?
My top guy is going to be Zay Jones of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, if Christian Kirk wasn't already not rostered in 90% of the leagues, he'd be the guy. Yeah. But here's the thing. Zay Jones is also apparently the guy in Jacksonville. He contributed significantly to the passing game. Not a lot in fantasy points, 12.5 points. He had 9 targets for 6 catches, 65 yards. Now, the 9 targets happen to be 15th most out of all receivers for this week. That's more than Mike Evans and Michael Thomas and Deebo. And again, we already kind of put asterisks for Deebo, but still. He was also tied. This is crucial for me. Tied for 2nd most red zone targets in the NFL.
Wow.
Not Jacksonville, in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence attempted 42 passes on Sunday. which was fourth most attempts in the league.
Yep.
The upside is absolutely worth using a waiver wire pick to get Zay Jones. He had a solid preseason, enough. I actually made a note of it from his week 1 preseason game. He looked great. He looked like a fantastic number 2 option for Jacksonville. And get this, he's only rostered in 1% of leagues. So it's almost a guarantee he's there for you.
Yeah.
Noah, also, you're going to give a fantastic option, but for me, use that waiver wire for Zay Jones.
Yeah, I think that's a great selection there. I was really interested early in the game. I was seeing these end zone targets going to Zay Jones, and I thought, wow, like maybe that's significant because there were like 2 on one drive that end zone shots to Zay Jones. I think that's a great option for your top waiver wire ad, Wes. I'm going to jump over to my guy. Is that cool with
please.
You?
Absolutely.
I will go ahead and jump in here. My top waiver wire ad for week 1 is going to be Washington Commanders wide receiver Curtis Samuel.
Love it.
Now, way back in 2020, when Curtis Samuel was still on the Carolina Panthers, he was a top 25 wide receiver. Last year, he was dealing with injuries coming into training camp. When Washington signed him, there was a little bit of hype, but then he was dealing with injuries, and we didn't really know. He didn't really play much. He didn't see the field a whole lot last year. But in week 1 this year, he saw 15 opportunities. 15 opportunities for Curtis Samuel to get his hands on the football and get himself in the end zone and do whatever he needed to do, which he did. He had 11 targets that equaled out to 8 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown. He also had 4 rushing attempts for 17 yards. He finished the week with 19.2 fantasy points. He had a fumble. So if he doesn't fumble there, he's up over 20 points for you. He was on the field for 48 snaps, which was less than both McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, but he had the most opportunities out of all 3 of them. As I've said many times, I'm big on opportunity in fantasy football. So give me a guy off the waiver wire who is making the most out of the ones that he is getting. I love Curtis Samuel this week. I was sprinting to the waiver wire to put in a claim for him whenever I could. And so I am very excited about Curtis Samuel.
Same. I actually have Curtis Samuel lined up for a couple leagues too. I like him a little bit more than Zay Jones just because I know he has a better shot to be the wide receiver 1. Keep in mind, everyone loves Terry McLaurin, but McLaurin only got 4 targets.
Yeah. He made a touchdown on one of them, but it was a little rough. It was a little bit of a rough day for McLaurin.
Yeah. I know Dotson's kind of the attractive name to take in the waiver wire because he's a rookie and he got 2 touchdowns and the game-winning touchdown. But for the season long, it's Curtis Samuel. That's the way the writing's on the wall for the Commanders. Curtis Samuel is going to be important.
The rushing opportunity for me is huge. I love that Rivera gave him manufactured plays for him is what I'm loving. And he sees the talent. Rivera saw a little bit of him in Carolina. I love it. I love it. I love it. Last but not least, we're going to fly through here because we've got a really exciting Thursday night football matchup this week. The Los Angeles Chargers are playing the Kansas City Chiefs, a high-powered AFC West matchup. Let's quickly run through our must-starts, our risky starts, and our don't-starts. Wes, take us away.
I'm going to start with a must-start, and it may seem like a no-brainer when I say his name, but just remember that he didn't do great for week 1. So I just want to encourage people, my must-start is going to be Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
Again, kind of like what Noah and I were saying last time for our Thursday night must start with Cooper Kupp and Josh Allen. Don't think about it because of the team you're playing against. It's the Chiefs. I understand. I know Eckler only got about 11 points, but he is a PPR machine, and this should be a shootout. Yeah. He had 94 targets. Austin Eckler did 94 targets last season, had 70 receptions, and he had 647 yards and 8 touchdowns. I think there is a really good possibility that Austin Eckler ends up with a receiving touchdown because I think that we're at the point now where Herbert is going to try to compete to be the best quarterback in the AFC West. Now, Mahomes has a strong start for 2022, but I think Herbert is riding with this MVP talk, backing him for this 2022 breakout season. He looked great. And I think because of this, in a unique way, it benefits Austin Eckler, who had the most receiving touchdowns of all running backs last season. Bank it, lock it in. Don't be afraid. Don't be concerned. Austin Eckler is going to do fantastic in what should be a Thursday night shootout, Chiefs Chargers.
I love it. And yeah, like you said, don't overthink it. In 2 games last year, he had against the Chiefs, he had in week week 3. In week 3 against the Chiefs last year, he had 18.2 fantasy points. And then in week 16, he was right around that number again. I believe he had six receptions, 52 yards, and a receiving touchdown. So that's about am I doing my math right here? 12. That's about 17.2. And then he's still just from receiving right there, 55. So he's up over that 22 point mark. And in that week 16 game, he's got a safe floor. It's going to be a shootout. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to watch Austin Eckler do Austin Eckler things against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
So I'm a big fan.
Tell me your must start for Thursday night, Noah.
I would love to. That's right. Sound the damn alarm. I'm doubling down on Mike Williams. Mike Williams is a must start this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. Listen, he let us down, guys. He let us down big time. 4 targets, 2 catches, 10 yards, 3 fantasy points. That's less points than fingers I have on one hand. Oh, so sad. So sad if you spent a 5th round pick on Mike Williams. So disappointing to see. But as I said earlier, we kind of signed up for it. We knew this was kind of what was happening. Again, I hope he had a safer floor this year because they gave him the contract extension. They gave him the money. Follow the freaking money. Herbert, give him the ball. But if you spent that 5th round pick on him, you got to start him. You can't play a guessing game. Trying to figure out the week that you got to start him, the week that he's going to have the great game. You got to start him for the 200-yard, 2-touchdown games, and you got to start him for the 2-catch for 10-yard games. But should be a fantastic opportunity for Mikey Dubs this week. Another AFC West matchup. Keenan Allen not looking like he's going to suit up or play on Thursday Night Football. I am starting Mike Williams with confidence. Herbert is going to look his way. He's going to throw him touchdowns. I can't wait for Thursday Night Football.
The only reason I'm not going to slander your decision is because Keenan Allen's probably not going to play. That's all I'll say.
If Keenan Allen was playing, I would still have him as a must start.
Oh my God.
I would still have him must start. I'm doubling down on Mikey Dubs.
All right.
That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. Let's get risky, Wes. Let's get risky.
Ooh, yeah.
That wasn't risky for me. Let's get risky. Tell me your risky start.
Right. Of course not. So my risky start is going to be the other side of the sideline. I'm going to go with Chiefs running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, what we saw on Sunday, that is the Clyde Edwards-Helaire we thought the Chiefs drafted his rookie year in 2020. That is the guy we heard Mahomes tell Andy Reid he's the one I want in the first round. His first game ever against the Texans was a solid game. He had 138 yards and a touchdown, and everyone was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And then it hasn't
flash forward
ever until today, or I guess until now. So he's been a disappointment. And as we talk about with the Fluke for real, I think it's for real, but it's still a risk because it's not the ground game. It's the passing game. Look, he had 7 rushes for 42 yards. He only had 3 targets. He caught all 3 of them, and he turned 3 of those catches into 2 touchdowns, 32 yards for that. Now, I don't think he'll do that again. However, Mahomes made it very clear to the fantasy football community that we'll have to guess week to week who's going to be the guy to start. And I'm not swaying either way as like it's a risk. I think you should, or risk you shouldn't. I think this is a pure risk starting Clyde Edwards-Helaire for Thursday night. Good luck.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I know that Isaiah Pacheco got a little bit of work. I don't know what that looks like. He did score a touchdown, but I'm not sure how much he eats in there. That is definitely a risky start, Wes.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how he does it as a consecutive week in this season. Noah, who's your risky start for Thursday night?
My risky start is going to be Gerald Everett, tight end for the Los Angeles
No
Chargers.
way. Love
Gerald
it.
Everett made the most of his targets in week one. Like 7 of his other teammates, he had 4 targets. He had 3 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. He backpedaled his way into the end zone and into fantasy relevance. I'm not entirely confident that he gets those targets again. I think we're going to have to see, I think it's going to be a little more high powered and not as much spreading the ball around dink and dunk. We're going to go for broke here in this Chargers offense. But in a week where, like I said, Cole Kmet had 1 target and you may not be feeling so good about it, I wouldn't blame you for considering starting Everett and picking him up on the waiver wire, but do so with very much caution.
It's a fascinating decision because he did end up scoring. He is the 3rd highest scoring tight end from week 1. So not counting Taysom Hill, who's counted as a tight end in some leagues still. But Gerald Everett, I mean, kind of what we're saying with Herbert is that ball is going to end up all over the place. And there's a chance. Yeah, I think it's an accurate description. I think Gerald Everett is going to be a risk to start, but the tight end position has kind of been a little weak outside of Kelsey. Yeah, good choice, Noah. Good choice.
Send it if you feel like it.
Send it.
Send it. Wes, tell me who you're not even considering. Don't even start him. Tell me who it is.
You mentioned him. I don't think you should start Isaiah Pacheco for the Kansas City Chiefs because we'll say he had a lot of hype in the preseason, all right? He was wearing Tyreek Hill's number 10. He's really fast like Tyreek Hill was, and he's really exciting. And then he scores a touchdown. And his first game, we're thinking, hey, you know what? There may be a guy right here. He got that touchdown in garbage time. He got it like at the end of the game. The score was already
100.
Yeah, the score was already 35-15. After Mahomes had already thrown 5 touchdowns in the air, they put in Pacheco. And they put in Pacheco, and he only sees 22% of the snaps. Now, I know they're going to rotate a lot of these guys, so someone has to go in. But, Pacheco is still the 3rd running back in the depth chart. He's still behind Jerick McKinnon. So he's not there when CEH is tired or whatever. Jerick McKinnon goes in, and then it's Isaiah Pacheco. So, I don't mean to be harsh, but I think he's not going to be sneaky play. I think it's a waste of a flex if you're going to try to put in Pacheco after 1 touchdown at the end of garbage time. So for me, don't start Pacheco. He's not worth it.
Yeah, I agree. Not going to be much garbage time in this game as far as we can tell. And so I agree with you there. The only thing worth noting on this is that Pacheco played and Ronald Jones was a healthy scratch. So maybe they see something a little more in him than maybe a little bit of usage they want to use there. But yeah, not anything to put in your lineup. Don't consider it. It's, you like you said, garbage time, not going to be garbage time in this game. It's going to be a shootout, and they're going to want their best guys there. And Isaiah Pacheco certainly has a lot of potential, but I don't think he's their best guy.
At least not for next week. So to close out the show, speaking of next week, Noah, who's the last person that we're going to talk about? Your don't start for this game.
Don't start DeAndre Carter. What are you thinking? What are you doing? Why is it a thought? Why is it a thought? He's not even rostered in 0.1% of leagues, guys. It's Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and then Josh Palmer, and he's like the 4th string wide receiver. And he might even be 5th string. I'm not honestly entirely sure. Because I just don't think about it. He was a name on no one's radar. He came out, also had 4 targets. Shocker. He managed to turn it into 3 catches, 64 yards and a touchdown, 15.4 fantasy points. Just like Gerald Everett, they don't see the targets making their way to him again. Herbert targeted 11 different players in week 1. I think in this game with Kansas City, he tightens things up and he goes to his best guys, and Carter should remain unrostered. But if you pick him up, keep him on the roster for at least 1 more week if you're trying to see if this is legit. And even after that, you got to consider that Keenan Allen isn't going to play. So you can't even really judge based off that. So just don't pick him up. Don't start him. What are you thinking? Just quit it. Quit that.
And you really got me with that.
I'm glad. It was a good way to lighten everything up here at the end. Mikey Dubs to the moon. Put DeAndre Carter on the waivers and send him not to the moon. Don't send him anywhere. That is going to be all the time we have for this episode. Wherever you are listening, we'd appreciate it if you gave the episode 5 stars and write something funny in the review. Like if you peed, that's funny. So
yeah, please let us know if you peed.
Let us know if you peed today, and we'll make sure we check in on you. We're on social media everywhere at 4th and Troll, on Facebook at 4th and Troll Fantasy. Look out for our mascot, Tutty the Troll, and make him smile by giving us a follow and joining us next time every Tuesday and Friday. My name is Noah Selby.
And I'm Wes Selby.
And this has been 4th and Troll Fantasy.